Okay. Okay. We working today. We working today. I have a theory for y'all. And I want to share this theory with you because this theory is going to be the framework for the discussions that I want to have after this point, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a requirement, but I think it will be helpful to have this context for what I'm talking about in the future. All right? So hear me out. So I have this idea that the United States is a full narcissistic family system, right? So this is not something that's new by any means. Like I've seen people make that comparison, right, where they're talking about white people and narcissistic injury and that sort of thing. But I think that we should look at it collectively as a narcissistic family system. And I have this perception that this family system includes our narcissistic, family, right? Or our narcissistic parent, which is big business, big pharma, that sort of thing. The millionaires, the trillionaires, billionaires, and not even so much the millionaires, because I feel like even as a millionaire, because we have billionaires and a person on track to be a trillionaire, and we have corporations that are worth $1 trillion or several, like that conceptuality is kind of nuts, where millionaires and six-figure earners are looking kind of like, shouldn't everybody be doing that? Like that's weird to me, but bear with me. I'm a deviate a little bit because I didn't write this down. I should have, but I just felt like it was going to take too long. So forgive me in advance. But I think that we are in this abusive relationship or this narcissistic relationship. So again, we have the narcissistic parents, which are big businesses, millionaires, the wealthy, and so on and so forth. And then we have the golden child, the invisible children, and the scapegoats. And here is why this is important. Because when we look at this as a collective system, right, the way that the United States holds itself together, it really is a lot of fallacy. It really is a lot of a psychological construct and build. And so much of it is actually contradictory and requires this individualism that we like to perpetuate as like life, liberty, and freedoms and so on and so forth. But the individualism is also the thing that is weaponized or used against you, right? So here's what I have. We have this system that includes racism, classism, capitalism, right? We have the concept of conspicuous consumption where a lot of people buy things, and so much of who we are and what we represent is in the things that we can afford to buy, which is interesting. Because if you see someone that lives a modest lifestyle, you think that they're a nobody, that they aren't of anything. And a lot of times that's just not true. That's a fallacy. When we think about people that are having a hard time, there is this belief or this interpretation that people that are having a hard time are somehow worthless, right? This is social Darwinism, that people that are successful, that have more things, that can purchase more things, that have the biggest house, right? This keeping up with the Joneses things. This social Darwinism inside of capitalism creates this relationship or this dynamic in which people believe that you are the things that you own, that the person or the construct of the individual is correlated to stuff that they buy. And it's like, and despite time and time again that we see that that's not true, somehow it still holds because there is some sort of psychological conditioning that's happened there, but it's been happening for so long that most of us don't deconstruct it or come away from it. And then you have the system of racism, right? And when we think about things like social Darwinism, this has been the backbone for the justification of certain people being treated a certain sort of way because there is an implication that the color of your skin, again, another identity that is used to disqualify or declassify someone as human. And it suggests that this color of your skin is the reason that you behave this way because there is something there, right? And even when you take a component like religion, right? Religion, and we are seeing this unpack, right? Where we have that young lady that did that experiment where she's calling the churches, and the churches are like, well, we can't help you. Because there is a component of a lot of those folks are not religious because they are followers of Christ or that they believe in God or they believe in the word. It is an attribute, it is an accolade to who they are. It's a stamp or a badge of what they represent, but not who they actually intend to be. It's how they want to be perceived. It's not different when you hear CEOs say, like, oh, yeah, you got to get a wife, you have to have a partner, you have to have children because people trust you when you are a family man, even if your heart is not aligned with family practices. Does that make sense? So, inside of the system, I've been thinking about the breakdown of black and white inside of the structure or the organization of this family system. And when we think about it through the window of the golden child, the invisible child, and the scapegoat, I'm going to start with the relational aspect of it. Now, I am a black female, so I'm going to be having this conversation through the lens of me being a black female and how I perceive this. And I am going to use this structure to have future conversations because any good theory should be testable. We should be able to recreate it, discuss it, and present it as a thing. This is not an assertion of fact. This is my opinion. This is my theory. Hear me out. So, in our system, in our relationship as black and white people, based on our narcissistic family structure, we are watching the unfolding of what our relationships mean, right? So we'll pinpoint the presidency and what it represents to me for our next video. We're going to get into the dynamic of relationship amongst us. I have come to the understanding and the acceptance that Trump is not our biggest op. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that our biggest op is regular white people. And when I say regular white people, I mean regular white people as in these are the people that are engaging in the day-to-day and they don't get to experience superiority the way that it is portrayed in real time. Essentially, when you do things like tell someone that they are the best, you are the best, no one's better than you, no one can do what you do, no one is as well versed as you are, no one is as smart as you. But when they go into regular life, right, there's not enough CEO seats for every white male that exists. That's just a reality. There is not enough managerial seats. There is not enough business opportunity. There's not enough business acumen, right? Like there's no way for every single white guy to be the guy. This is what happens because this is natural social Darwinism, if you will. Not everybody, and then not to mention, not everybody wants to be that guy. But in the event that they so choose to show up, they are the golden children of this system. They are the golden child of the United States of America. I understand it. Now, in second place, not quite invisible, not quite unnoticed, but kind of, the white woman, the black man. We don't talk about enough that feminism on its own, a big part of the birth of feminism is that we had white women look at their white male counterparts and say, how dare you give black men access before you give it to us? We have to acknowledge that. That's a very, very tricky thing, but it is an important part of the story. Because why? These invisible children are fighting for the number 2 spot. Perception. This is not an assertion of fact. So you have black men who are like, nah, I'm number 2. And you have white women that's like, who said? And so what I think about even more inside of this thought process, inside of this theory, is when they are dating interracially, this is why you see volatility. Because what's happening is does this relationship allow for us to be elevated in perception as a golden child? Do we make it to the number one spot based on being together? Are we creating power within each other? But what happens is when you are self fueled to be perceived in a certain sort of way, it gets problematic when working together. If y'all are both fighting for number two, even when y'all are in relationship, there will be a power struggle that occurs. And I thought that that's a pretty interesting thing. And then you have, last but certainly not least, the scapegoat, the Black woman. The woman that no matter where she goes, she's never good enough. She never got enough to say, or she do too much, or she always got an attitude, and she never participates, and she's never helpful, and she's all of these things, right? The punching bag. Because when people are confronted with their inability to be that golden child, they can't punch up. In your family system, do you get to punch up at your parents? Or do you fight with your siblings? Go figure. So going back to that comparison of interracial dating, this is how come white men and Black women tend to have lower divorce rates. Because why? Right? And I've seen the comments made before. They like, yo, y'all are just nicer to them and so on. It's like, because the difference is the white guy, his security is not compromised based on who he's with. Because remember, he's always the golden child. The golden children can't do no wrong. It's like, nah, if that's what he want to do, he going to do it. And if he's doing it, that means it's the right thing to do. He's the golden child. He know what he's doing. The Black woman who is constantly fighting to just defend herself, she's not looking for power. She's looking for relief. And the proximity to the golden child means that he can protect you from the strain that comes from being the scapegoat. Because you see, the invisible kid can become the golden child or the scapegoat, which is why Black women's movement through the system is problematic. Because again, there's not enough room for everybody to be successful in capitalism. Because remember, capitalism is that there's some at the bottom, there's some at the top. So if you take people from the bottom and move them to the top, who's at the bottom now changes. It's different. And I never really pondered this until the other day. And I said, wait a minute. I think that this is the psychology that is problematic and hurting us. Because we don't realize that in a lot of different spaces, we are the default, I'm talking about Black women in particular, we are the default scapegoats, which is why it doesn't matter how much we assimilate, it's still something. Like, why aren't you nicer? This is how come we still get paid, 60 something cents on the dollar to our counterparts? This is how come we never get quite what we deserve in a lot of these dynamics. This is why we go into business for ourselves, because we aren't respected and appreciated in the workforce. But as we shift, this is how come, regardless of how far away from the system we move, we still get brought up in these negative lights, because the people that can never become golden children need an outlet to express their frustration. And they have been conditioned to believe that we, the people at the bottom, are the problem. This is how come we had an administration that was effective in convincing people that immigrants are actually the problem. Because you can't hit the parents in the narcissistic family system. You fight your siblings. So, dare I say that this is something that I've been paying attention to. And in essence, I've been looking back on all of the relationships. And this is why it's so challenging in corporate spaces. This is how come relationship wise, there's so many different challenges. This is how come on social media, you see all of these people that have something to say, and it doesn't matter how we show up. It doesn't matter if you get married. It doesn't matter if you are liberal. It doesn't matter if you're conservative, right? This is how come Erica Kirk gets dog walked, not different than Megan Thee Stallion, which is crazy because it's like, how is it that they're getting grief in the same way? This is why Blake Lively is talked about as this terrible person that's just seeking opportunity. And you realize that psychologically, the conditioning has afforded people to act in accordance to this narcissistic family system. And people just want to be golden children in this system that we call capitalism. So I will be back because the next thing we got to talk about now is the Danish deception. We got to talk about Akasha's wife, which is foul. It's so bad. It's so bad. And we're going to talk about this notion that the red pill is dead. Or is it? Talk to you soon. Bye.